digital? Why do we want to ensure top quality in the products, on the knowledge products that we produce? So I'm going to go through that very quickly. Firstly, to promote good writing and highest quality editorial standards. Okay, so we all know that writing is a very essential job skill. It is a yardstick on which our intellect, our learning, one's work is judged by other people. Excellent writing skills can enable us to communicate our message or even our knowledge with precision, with correctness and sureness and accuracy with a wider audience that we could not probably get in touch with on a face-to-face communication. So through writing, we can reach a wider audience in general. Secondly, to promote consistent use of terminology. Consistency makes our document look more polished and professional. So when you see that the author switches back and forth between various styles and formats, it becomes very sloppy for the reader to pick up. If you, as an author, pick a style, please stick to it. It'll make things easier not only for the reader but also for yourself to maintain consistency. You often see that in narratives or write-ups, people use different words that have similar meanings. It's a very high possibility that they might end up making the reader confused. And lastly, quality assurance is essential for building organizational image. UNICEF as a brand name brings with it a certain amount of credibility and reputation. People, when they come across UNICEF services and products, expect top-notch products. So this is why good writing will help us accentuate or increase our brand image toward the public in the market. We also have to note that while yes, you are all WASH experts working in your respective fields and universities and experts in even public health as well, but we also, much before that, we are UNICEF frontline workers for UNICEF, for whom translating knowledge on paper is equally important as doing work on the ground in order to demonstrate of the importance of the work we do. So yes, this is why quality assurance is important and holds supreme relevance. Again, Swati, we have you. Mentimeter, it's time for Mentimeter. We're going to have a very quick poll in which you have to give yourself marks or rate yourself on the basis of 1 to 10 on how good are you in drafting case studies, technical reports. Yes, so Swati, can we please have the question?
Yes, I just need to share my
sharing?
screen again. Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. All right, guys, 2 more questions. This time we want you to reflect internally. Just going to share my screen here. Here we go. We're back to the presentation. Oh, look, 4 people have already hearted it. Fantastic. So look back at your cell phones or this screen. You should see this question pop up. So first, assess yourself. How good do you think your skills are compared to everything that you've seen out there, compared to what you've seen your colleagues do and produce? How well do you think you write a case study? How well do you think you write a technical report, which could also be like an academic piece of paper or like something for a journal, something that is a lot, very intensive in terms of data. And then how well do you think you understand the difference between outputs and outcomes? Great, people are already on top of this too. Good. And yeah, feel free to be be honest with yourself. This is anonymous. It's not like we're tracking names of who says what. So yeah. Great. The average is around 7. Cool.
People really know what the difference between outputs and outcomes, which is a very thin line of difference, but I'm happy people are aware of it.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it wouldn't feel like it makes sense for a knowledge management webinar, but it does, because I think when people understand the fundamental difference between outputs, outcomes, and impact, that also affects the way that they present information in the various reports that they deliver. I know that at UNICEF, often we talk about impacts, but then the writing under that section is really just outputs, right? Like they'll say like, oh, results and impacts, and then they'll be like, oh, 20,000 frontline workers were trained. Well, that's not an impact, that's an output. impacts come down the line. You realize impacts, 1 year, 2 year, 5 years down the line. So it's not something you can actually report on immediately, unless it's like, I guess, like vaccinations, perhaps, where in 6 months, if you vaccinate an entire community of children under 5, maybe in like 6 months, you'll see that there's no new cases of measles. That's a good impact. All right, great. So we
Yeah,
got
13
about 13,
responses.
14. That's great. You guys feel relatively confident about writing a case study, which is fantastic. I see that there's a wider spread for technical reports. That's also okay. All of this comes with practice, and whatever we talk about going forward can also be applied to technical report generation. Really glad to see that in general we have a general understanding between outputs and outcomes. But does anybody want to give an explanation of the difference between outputs and outcomes? Anybody want to take a stab at it?
We actually have a section on that. Is it okay if we keep,
Oh
keep the
yeah,
suspense
yeah.
till that?
Yes,
Okay.
we can keep the suspenseful then. Totally. Radhav's the expert at this point. Okay, cool. Last question. We want you to think about how others in your team are doing. So all of you are associated with UNICEF or supported by UNICEF in some way or another. So we want to ask you, of all the materials that are kind of shared by UNICEF, even the first drafts, how well do you think they're reading? And it's okay, again, be honest, it's anonymous. Do you feel like everything we share is very readable, easy to access, easy to understand? Do you feel like it's a mix? Do you feel like in general, actually, our documents are pretty hard to understand? They need to be clearer. That's also okay. You can also say, I don't know. You don't really read UNICEF documents. That's not part of your job.
Okay, so most people are saying that it's a mix, so they're in the middle.
Yeah. Okay,
Uh,
great. So I assume, I mean, not to call you guys out, but I imagine it might be someone from the university who doesn't really read the UNICEF document, who doesn't get access to the UNICEF documents. It's also okay. Good that you're being honest about it. Great, so 15 responses. It's a mix. It seems to win out. The few of you who said that it's very readable, that's fantastic. Part of it could also be that you yourself are more flexible in terms of how you read different documents, which is also great. But yeah, we're really here also for the people who voted, it's a mix. We want to try to even it out. We want to make sure that everybody's kind of at the same level when they're producing documents, even when they share their first drafts, that they share their first drafts after they've edited it themselves. Things like that. So it's about putting in quality assurance mechanisms going forward. But cool, this is a good layout to know. And if Chaya and Sweta, if she's still like, she'll probably stay in touch with you guys forever. But if they decide that they would like a refresher session on this in 3-4 months time, we'll ask this question again and see if you guys have any changed opinions on this. But I'm going to hand it over back to
Swati, there's a
Chaya.
question for you.
Yes.
I want to say that something about the material that we mostly come across is not according to Indian context, but most of the times it is to some other country aspect. Okay.
Yeah, I can understand. So if you're talking, Raman, do you want to come online and tell us where, if this material is UNICEF or from other offices?
Raman, you can unmute yourself and come in.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, please.
Hello,
Yes.
ma'am. I have searched some context about like the SBCC and all. So what I have come across that the materials that we come across are basically from other countries. Some project is going on in South Africa. So that material is in context of South African some countries like. But it is not according to the Indian context. And I'm from India. So material from Indian
Right.
context will be much better helpful, I think, in my case.
Yeah, I mean, what you say makes a lot of sense. And it's true. We do, at least as UNICEF, we always have a hard time, I think, balancing the amount of focus that we put on other countries' examples and the amount of focus that we put on generating our own examples and documenting it. I can say that on my end, even as a knowledge management focal point, I am unable to document maybe more than like 10% of what comes my way because everybody is doing so much. And also part of knowledge management, which Raghav is going to go through, is dissemination. It's about making sure that you know, larger audiences are reading what we do. And I'm sure you can. Thanks for joining, Chaya, and thanks for the introduction. And I'm sure you can understand. You know.
All the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Raman, like we do write a lot of stuff, but often we write it just generally for one audience, right? The government. And often what you write for the government is not shareable for other people, which is why we're interested in talking about case studies. We do want to build up a culture where we're comfortable writing case studies that we are happy enough with, that we share externally with multiple partners, including governments, so that eventually you might read less of South African examples and more of Indian examples as we go forward. That being said, I would say that this is also the difference between passive knowledge production, passive knowledge consumption and active knowledge consumption. So I also do a lot of literature review, a lot of qualitative research for many of the policies and briefs that we're working on. And I'm going to tell you guys, Google Scholar is your friend. There are so many published academic journals, academic articles about water and sanitation from India that we never talk about, that we never access. I have to check in like once a month or something to see the latest things that have been published there. So Google Scholar is a friend. UNICEF also has internally, if you have a UNICEF ID, sorry, this is just for those people who have an ID, UNICEF is internally subscribed to a couple of academic databases that should be available if you go to icon and click on tools and then click on electronic databases. So also it's about making the knowledge management is also about making the space to learn from time to time, even if it's not part of the job ahead or something like that. And so hopefully, you know, by increasing the number of case studies and documentation products that we're doing, as well as increasing our investment in learning from non-traditional sources, I think together those can come and help get more exposure to Indian examples. All right, so now I'm going to hand over to Raghav, who's going to take you through the rest of the session. Just to let you know, we did have like a few minutes late start, so we're probably gonna end around 1:05 or 1:10. So please be patient with us. We usually do end around that time. We don't go over too much. And just to let you know, to emphasize one last thing to say, you know what Chaya said. This is knowledge management. It's not just about knowledge management and WASH. This is a soft skill that you can really apply to any sort of career or any sort of work that you're doing. You know, it's also about like your personal work. You know, knowledge management is about making sure that you can predict future needs. And if you can predict future needs and future demands of the audiences that you're supporting, the beneficiaries that you're supporting, then you're practicing knowledge management. And this is honestly just one aspect of a larger process. That being said, handing it over to Raghav, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Swati. Okay, after self-assessment, peer assessment, it's time for some homework assessment. You guys remember I shared a sample case study yesterday that was written by Chaya herself. Oh, great. It was from Assam and it's from the tea gardens. So this is, I found, a really good sample to share with you that I don't know if you've come across. So if any one of you managed to read that, would you please let us know your thoughts on how did you find the story, your thoughts on its flow? What are the components that stood out for you? What is it you dislike? Please feel free to critique. What is it that could have been improved or maybe polished in the story? Please let us know, those of you who have managed to read that, of what is it that you found good or bad in the story. The floor is all yours. Please, you can unmute yourself one by one and please come in.
Raghav, can I go ahead?
Yes, is that Pratosh?
Yes, Raghav.
Yes, hi, please come in.
Actually, what I found the perfect thing in this case study was it starts with the issue, like the numbers, these many childrens are not getting education, or and then after these many childrens are affected, and then it talks about the solutions. So what I found the good was the flow. So
The
and
flow. Okay.
at the end there is some narration of some one person, so which talks about how it's like the adaptive thing, like uh, what went well and how, and also it also talks about some one lady who is teaching to the children just outside her house, and then how she can also involve other children to join. So some other local strategies how they are managing, so that is also described very well in between. So I
Okay.
found that thing perfect.
Okay, great. Pratosh has some really good ratings on it. Anyone else would like to come in? Maybe who,
Yeah.
Yeah,
please feel free to let us know if
This
you
yeah,
is
don't like the case
Svetangana.
study. Yes, yes, please.
Hi, this is Svetangana. I
Hi.
did go through the case study yesterday. Like Pratyush said, it's wonderfully written. The only thing that I think I would have improved is the repetition that was there. I think there are two paragraphs where um, similar information has been repeated. So maybe that
Okay,
could
fair
be
enough.
changed.
Yes,
I think
second and
uh,
third paragraph are kind of the same. So
yeah, so they have repetitive information. I think that is something we could change. But other than that, I think it's quite good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm glad you talked
yeah,
about repetition because that's what we're going to discuss in the forthcoming session. Yes. Who else?
yeah, yeah.
Arsalan?
So,
Yes.
good afternoon. So, yeah, what I found in this document is the structure of the document is very well made. Like first, they have defined the problem, then the action, and then the result. In a very short document, they have defined man has defined this three things appropriately along with the learning. And yeah,
Okay.
also reiterating what Shvetangana said, there are like two paragraphs which are repetitive. So yeah, that can be done through like proofreading through some peer that can be removed before final submission. Like proofreading from a peer could
Absolutely.
help.
I'm
But
glad you talked about the structure because that's what I'm going to discuss, like how to structure your case study. Once you document it, once you find out about it, how to what are the ingredients that you could have in order to make a well-structured and well-polished case study. So I'm glad you brought it up. We will discuss this in detail in the later half of the session. Okay, moving on. How to build a case study. Okay, so for a moment, put yourself in the shoes of a journalist or in the shoes of a reporter who has just walked in, let's say, to an tea estate of Dibrugarh to see what is the sanitation situation of that tea estate. What are the questions that you need to have in advance in order to document a case study or a success story or even or maybe any report? What are the questions that you should have in advance when you walk into that place? So, okay, the planning process, in my opinion, please correct me if I'm wrong, the planning process should take up 40% of your overall documentation preparation time. If you have all the key materials, the relevant details, the right question bank, and know the audience who's going to be captured, the result of the document will come out in a very condensed format. So writing will only help you to flesh out the compact version. Let's say if you walk into that tea estate, the question that you should have is what is the situation there? How good or bad is it? Do people have toilets there? Do women have toilets there? How does the situation is compared to other tea estates or other districts that maybe have been declared ODF? Or how could Dibrugarh improve its situation? And what do you propose? What are the interventions that you think that UNICEF and partners should undertake in order to make to provide sanitation access also to those tea gardens? You could recommend you can give your recommendations. What is the next step? Any ways forward and any recommendations or any takeaways that you have from the case study. So if you string all these questions together as a whole, it will help you in forming a compelling narrative or compelling case study. So yes, and we move on. Okay. So when you draft a knowledge products, these are the following things that you keep in mind. We thought that these points might be suitable for a case study, but trust me, they're all very useful for you to draft any knowledge product. They're very basic and very foundational. So I'm sure most of you know about it, but it's just time to brushing up those skills. Firstly, get to the point. A sentence should not have any unnecessary words, no unnecessary paragraphs. Every word in the sentence should convey a meaning. This requires writers to make sentences short and avoid any unnecessary details or redundancies. And also, if you want your writing to inspire, to influence, getting to the point is great strategy. When you beat around the bush, there's a huge possibility that, like I said, you might confuse the reader. Okay, so whenever you open a newspaper or any like publication, the first thing that arrests your attention is the headline, is the title of it. So your focus should be equally on giving the case study a very captivating headline or a title. Uh, yes. So if you have a good case study, a huge possibility that it'll arrest the reader's attention as well. Know your audience. Okay. So when you face a writer's block, which is when you struggle with a blank screen, the first question, the only question that you ask yourself then is, who is my audience? Who's going to read my writing piece? Who's going to come through and draw conclusions from it? If you know your audience from before, when you begin to write, and really take them into consideration before putting your fingers on the keyboard, your writing can be more effective. In fact, it is the most probably one of the key elements of good writing. The more accurately you write and you imagine your reader, the more accessible you will be for them. You know, instantly when we wonder like who our reader would be, we automatically choose the right words, keeping the audience in mind, keeping their persona in mind, and write and review keeping their persona in mind. So it really help us reduce our dilemma. Avoid making unrealistic statements or claims. Okay, so an example of that would be, I take this example quite often. I'm sure you might have also read about it, that a group of women felt really empowered, truly empowered and emboldened enough to talk about menstruation after receiving a training. Okay, it might sound good, it is good, but when someone reads it, it sounds really unrealistic and misleading. So you avoid those kind of unrealistic statements. Even if you want to make a claim, it's better it's backed by a credible evidence or any it. Okay, next, spell out in abbreviations. So imagine if anyone else who's expert or maybe who is not familiar with wash comes piece of case study and sees technical terminologies like M or FSM or let's say G or any other abbreviation that they might not be aware of. Again, it's a huge possibility that you might confuse the reader and you challenge their competence. So in order to not to challenge them, spell those technical language or those jargons or the acronyms out itself. And lastly, follow a 5 point writing mantra. Number one, write. Two, revise. Three, edit. Four, rewrite. And fifth, and most important, proofread. So this is not only a 5 point mantra, but also a 5 point procedure that you can follow. You put your fingers onto the keyboard. Practice makes everyone's perfect. Even Nobel laureates and winners do not, do constantly. So it's better that if we do as well.
Yeah, and
And
I
now
just
we
want to
move on to an exercise. Okay, great.
wait, and
I'm
then
going to share with
Raghav,
you a case study.
Raghav, can you
Sorry.
hear me? I think there might be a
Sorry, yes?
Okay, perfect.
Hello?
I think there might be a slight lag, but I just
Hello?
want to come in and say that yeah, especially when we go back to the point that Raghav made about even professional writers, they edit their work. Every time you read one of those academic journals, every time you read like those those briefs from like the World Bank or UNICEF HQ and things like that, those documents have been edited, re-edited multiple times before it comes to you, the reader. So, you know, I think one of the things that we need to disabuse of for ourselves is um, expecting what we write the first time to be as communicative as we think it is. You know, so write something the first time, take a break, look at it the next day again, and then I guarantee you will find issues with it, and better ways to write certain aspects of it. So that's why we say, you know, we can give you all of these rules, we can tell you all of this, but at the end of the day, it comes down to just practice and dedicating a little bit of extra time each time to just double check what you've written. All right, over to you again, Raghav.
Okay, thank you. So yes, it's time for some exercise. I'm going to another case study with you that with us. It's a case study from Assam, and you're going to read it. What your exercise is, you're going to read time right now and tell us what you keeping all those we talked about. Keeping those in mind, you tell us what are your and reflect again on the flow of the story, the structure, errors, and yes, I have put in the link in the for those who cannot access the also sharing my screen that you can read the story. Just a second, give me a second. Right, here is the case study. Also, just a disclaimer to make, I'm under connection. If I drop off, I am in the next 60 minutes. I hope my voice is not cracked because I'm under some poor Vodafone hot.
Uh, yeah, sorry about that. So Raghav is going to make sure that his connection is back. But in the meantime, please take the time to read this. This has been shared with us, an example of something that is generally drafted by the Assam office. Yeah, take a few minutes. We're going to give you some silence, read through, and then Raghav will be back in time to lead you through the discussion.
Yes, you have 2 minutes to read it. Those of you who have read the case study, please unmute yourself and let us know your thoughts on it. What did you find good, or what do you like to, any recommendations on how to polish this case study? Please feel free to come in.
Can I come in, Raghav?
Yes, please.
What I found really good was the pictures. It's really, uh, it looks like really you feel like you should read it. Like very cute pictures, and they have taken good pictures. But what I didn't understand much about was the titles. They have just written the titles of the two districts, and then
Okay. So would you like to recommend any appropriate title? We talked about having catchy titles. What, according to you, would be a catchy title for the story, the two stories?
okay,
Can you tell for one of them?
just a second. Anganwadi. Okay. If I say for Tinsukia, the
Mhm. It's a convergence story. It talks about a lot of convergence with the ECD. We talk about convergence in the later half of the presentation. WASH, SLWM, it's a multi-thematic case study. So what could be an appropriate title that is, A, encapsulates the essence of the story, but is also, yeah, catchy and captivating? What could be that?
okay.
Anyone else would like to come in?
Hello, can I comment?
Yes, please.
Hi, I am Anupam, and by reading this whole case study or the document, I feel one thing like if we see the whole document, there are a lot of abbreviations used, like AWC, SLWM, then IEC, AWW, AWS. I think if in this whole document, if we can mention the full form, like AWC stands for Anganwadi Center or the SLWM, Solid Liquid Waste Management, that will be a bit clearer to someone who is not from this WASH background to understand this whole report. It will be a it will be a bit easy for them. Someone from
Great. I think Anupam has read the instructions that we talked about before really well. So expanding technical terms or any abbreviations that you find, you have to spell them out in the first place. Okay, we have what time for one more response and then we'll move on. Any other reflection that you like to have? Um, Pratosh talked about pictures. Yes, pictures do tell a compelling story in itself, but there's something missing in the picture. I would be happy uh, if you
Caption.
could point that out. And also, we have a lot of women in the room. Please come, please. Gender representation, convergence with gender. Please come in, all the ladies.
We have captions for these pictures?
Great. I'm so glad you talked about it. We're going to discuss it in the later half. Yes. What else about the story? Yes, 26 participants, and you only have two responses. Anyone else would like to come in?
And in the case study, it narrates the story, but in the whole story it doesn't have like exact titles. Like here in this paragraph, we are going to, maybe like it's here in this paragraph we are going to talk about the like the wash practices, like how they are managing their waste, and so
Okay.
I think it needs some categories in between or some segregation, would I say?
Right. So right structuring is what you mean. Anyone else would like to come in? Anyone
The
from the women?
case
I'd
study
love
is
to hear from the women.
very elaborative, is very fine because we got to know about the situation in Tinsukia district and their Anganwadi center. But I think under the case study, it would be better if we could segregate some of the themes so that it will be easier for the participants to understand or for the readers also to understand.
Okay, fair enough.
Hello,
Okay,
ma'am.
and then we should move on. And we got pretty good responses. And I'm happy the responses that we got. We're going to discuss it in detail in the next couple of minutes. Okay, I will share my screen once again. Stop sharing. Share. Okay. So this is again the paragraph that you see on screen are two excerpts from the case study we had from Assam. I'll request you to take 1 minute, and it's like an omission and editing exercise that we used to have in school. So in which you have to point out the issues or the grammatical errors or any errors that you find. So we have 1 minute, and before that, could you please point out the errors narrative in this paragraph? These are two excerpts that I've culled out stories I've got from Assam. It's on Washington schools. So people working on Washington schools, I'll request you to please come up and point out the errors. It could be anything.
Ocean Schools, Arsalan, Anupam, Shwetangana.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, sorry. Yes, yes, please, sir.
Could
Yeah,
I? Okay, I think Arsalan.
yeah, Shwetangan can.
Yes, please. Would you like to come in?
Yes, Swetangana, do you want to go? And then Arslan?
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is the grammatical part of it. I think that there are some punctuations missing, and also I think the sentencing also could. I mean, there are a few sentences that could be formed better. So I think that is one. And again, like Anupam had mentioned earlier, the abbreviations also could be, I think, spelled
Okay.
out.
Could you help me refining one of the sentences? Maybe this one, the head of the school teacher appreciated, or maybe any sentence that you found that could be polished further. Could you form it? Or help me do that?
Yeah,
Or
could I
anyone
just
else would
write it
like to
down in the
point out
chat?
any other error that we might have missed out? Abbreviations, punctuation. Yes, your voice is breaking, ma'am.
Raghav, I think it might be on your end.
Okay, sorry. Am I audible now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, anyone else would like to come in?
Yeah. So hi, this is Aslan. By reading this piece, there's one thing there's abrupt transition between the sentences. The first
Okay,
sentence and the head teacher sentence, like the transition is not very well. Either there should be a para change or something that could say that why the head teacher has
right.
how the head teacher has come in. And then, if you're looking at grammatical mistakes, then the last sentence, the separate toilet for girls. So I don't feel so. It should start with the. There should be like a separate toilet for girls. Should be the appropriate way to start this statement. Yeah.
Okay, so Arsalan talked about two important things. A, connecting the dots in the story. He could not establish a link between the first sentence and the next sentence. So there has to be a connect between the sentences. Also, use of articles. So I'm going to punch in the answers. Okay, maintain a constant verb tense. If you see the last sentence, it says build in the present tense, and then in the later sentence says you. It's past and present, so the reader can get confused. You about consistency, use consistent verb tense in your narratives. Plural nouns, Arsalan just pointed out, common nouns when writing about multiple. If you say use have with the common nouns, with the nouns. If you say toilets, make sure the narrative is around the plural as well. Only capital nouns. Do not capitalize. If you see school is being capitalized second line, it's do not capitalize common nouns. Connect exactly what Arsalan pointed out. You should have a connect between the sentence you just ended, sentence use of articles, the, a, and the. Shouldn't be the separate toilet. It should be the sentence could be only start with a separate toilet. And punctuation. So, in order to have a better sense of the sentence, in order to avoid run-on sentences, please use punctuation marks as well. Okay, and we have a second very quick assignment, and I paragraph to workshop this paragraph with you people. I have an edited version of this, but before I publish that, I would request everyone to reflect on this and let me know what you think of this. It's a find it a very complicated paragraph, and honestly, I don't relate. I could sense of it. If anyone of you could, please do let me. Yes, you have 30 seconds. Anyone other than Arsalan and Pratosh would like to come in? Those who haven't spoken? Uh,
Hello, can I'm audible?
yes, who's this?
It's Roman Gogoi.
Yes, you are. Is that Ankush? Who's that? Raman, Raman, hi.
It's Roman Gogoi. Sir, in this para, the new
Yes,
para that you were given, sir, the abbreviations like the CSC and BC are not sure what are they. So we can use a complete form there and also write the abbreviation in the bracket form. So that will be much better, I think, in the case. And the dots are not connected properly, I think, in this paragraph.
correct. Okay. Anyone else who wants to point out any error?
Yeah.
How could it be sentence be further be refined or maybe shortened?
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, this is
Anyone
Pradeep here. This is
who
Pradeep
hasn't
here.
spoken?
This is
Maybe
Pradeep here. Am I audible?
I don't know names, but
Hello.
yes, who's this? Hi, Pradeep.
This is Pradeep here. Yeah. Yeah, in fact,
Yes.
the one thing is Raman has already pointed out about the abbreviations. And there are things
Okay.
like the repetition. Say in the first line itself, SBM shifted its focus from IHHL toilet. The very fact that full
Mm-hmm.
form of
Okay.
IHHL means latrine, individual household latrine, and there is a repetition of the word.
Right.
This is one thing, and secondly, the entire paragraph is framed with just with one sentence, which is actually not giving any clarity of like what
Exactly.
the person wants to say or what we want to say. So maybe we can make multiple sentences
Okay.
of the
So if you
entire
see the
paragraph.
whole paragraph is so 7 sentences long, is without any punctuation mark. One hack that I would recommend is make sure to use that you write it as long as 2 lines. So if you see that going more than that, to use punctuation stop in between or break that sentence into two. Did this narrative. So if you yes, again, the errors are include abbreviations, spell them out, watch out for run-on sentences. Now, I'd request you to read this, which is an edited version of this paragraph. Let me know if you can make sense of this. Also, on a side note, you see the word Swachhagrahi. In the last paragraph that you read, it was capitalized. So Swachhagrahi is a common noun. It's not someone's designation. It's title, it's an occupation, which is a common noun. So always when you use these kinds of words such as swachhagrahis, jal sahyas, jal surakshak, please use them in lowercase always. And since they're in Hindi, it'll be better if you put them in italics. If you put them in italics, make sure you give context. Imagine if someone from the international audience reads it, not know what a satyagrahi means. So it's better you specify that in the parentheses as well. Let's say if you talk about only one orientation were held for swachagrahis. In bracket, you write down who are they, sanitation volunteers. Just to, again, content is also very important. So yes, now Raman, do you understand this narrative? Is it, can you comprehend it? Or can it be made more simpler?
So it's better
Raman, are you
the
there?
abbreviations are being. Yes, sir. Am I audible? Hello,
Yes.
am I audible?
Yes.
So it's better now as the abbreviations are being explained. So it will be much more better for all the audiences which are not familiar to the abbreviations. So I think mm, so it is better now from the previous version, I think.
Okay, you find it better now than the previous version? If you see, I've broken down the
Yes, sir.
sentence, 6 sentences into 3, right? So
Hmm.
explain everything, make question marks to break the sentences, okay? And I think we have some scarcity of, I hope everyone understood. If not, please feel free to ask questions. We should move on by now. Okay, this is next narrative. Very This is an easy one, and the errors are quite visible. So, yes, it's time for you to point them out. Again, keep in mind that the common issues that we discussed in the previous slide, and also the important things that you should keep in mind while study, be it getting to the point, using abbreviation, spelling, avoiding long sentences. Keep all those things in mind. Now, with that lens, read this. Yes,
There
as
are a
you
lot
read, do
of
you find some errors,
there
some
are
common
there are a lot
issues?
of long sentences that we can easily avoid. I'm just one. I just
Okay,
write after receiving the training, NSS cadet. So it's not required. We can simply write the trained NSS cadet has taken different initiatives. For example,
great. Okay, okay. So you saw how to minimize or eliminate redundancies in a sentence. Okay. What else? I use this narrative just to explain one thing. That good that you expand abbreviations. Make sure if the expanded abbreviations are not proper nouns, do not capitalize them. For instance, the full form of NSS would be National Service Scheme. It's a proper noun. It's a national program. Unlike an infection prevention and control, which is common noun, it's not a name of an organization. It's not a name of a program. It's an common noun. So even if there are abbreviations if there are abbreviations or acronyms to longer words, not proper nouns, do not capitalize them. An NGO noun, singular object, it's not a proper noun. So if it's better that you write full NGO in lowercase, even if it has an abbreviation. Okay, I think we should move on. Okay, I said a major chunk of knowledge management involves documentation. So this we have UNICEF has a set of resources that I'm going to send after this workshop that will help you to not only draft a case study but also refer to them with the questions that you want to ask when it comes to writing a human interest story or taking consent. Pratosh talked about consent. We have a set that has a style book, a human interest story in template, guidelines that one should use to put a logo. You see a lot of UNICEF logos in the products that you produce. How to correct common issues, how to rectify UNICEF lingo. For instance, if you see a very common error that we see is we see hand washing written as two separate words. But in UNICEF, we write hand washing as one word. So please, if you before you send any document or any knowledge product to please do a spell check and go through that style on how you can get rid of those wrong lingos. And COVID-19, again, we see of COVID-19 written, but the right term that you'd use in UNICEF documents is capital COVID, everything in capital and with a hyphen and a nine. Do not write it in small, or do not just write corona, or put some syllables in upper or some in. It has to be fully capital, okay? Because it's the full form of COVID-19 disease 2019. I will share, coming back to my previous section, I will share all those resources with you once this workshop is done. Okay, we have a few common issues and run-on sentences. We all discussed this. Articles, capitalizations. Okay, when you write government in running form, it is a common noun. Do not capitalize it. If you say, let's just say, government of Assam or government of Chhattisgarh, government of the United States of America, it becomes a proper noun. In only in that case, the word government will be capitalized. If you say the Department of PGD, that is everything of that is pronoun. So you capitalize the first syllables of it. But if you use department, it shouldn't be capitalized. Acronyms, we all that on how to expand them and why is necessary to expand them. A narrative flow. I remember one person talked about the flow of the to case studies while we were reading the case study from Assam in the first exercise. So yes, if you make a report or any technical document, which is maybe study, this is the procedure. This is the structure that you should follow. A, give background, give a structure to it. Tell us about the methodology in the program. How many people are involved? What is that you or your UNICEF or your partner undertook? What is it about? The results, the outcomes, and the outputs. We'll discuss about this. How many people were trained? So these are the important heads that you can have when you draft assessment. The discussion in the end. What are the discussion would lessons learned? What are the key takeaways from it? How do you, let's say, if you conduct a training on MHM, take forward from that in another? What are the takeaways from that you take forward to another training? Take. So this is a strict structure that you need to follow when you write an assessment. And a human interest story. Okay, am I still audible? Hope I'm still audible. Okay. Uh,
Yeah, you're back. You're
uh,
back.
if you focus on a human interest story, do not start from an individual story, but later you can graduate that individual story impacts on the has an impact on the community or an impact as a whole. So try to expand the canvas of your human interest story rather than only writing about one person and how did that person overcome that challenges. Let's say if a girl overcomes, if a child overcomes a challenge of get sanitation access, how does that contribute to the fulfillment of SDGs, which is a call to action, a broader theme. So try links in that, connect on that, exactly what about in the previous slide. Yes, okay, this is my favorite slide. What are the checklists and ingredients for drafting a good case study? My request to everyone would be, I will send this as a standalone piece that you can pin up on your writing tables. And before you start writing a case study or any other narrative, you should look at it. What all are all the components that your story has or does not have? The first one being background, introduction. What is the context? Uh, if you're talking about, if you're introducing about, let's say, the sanitation situation in T estate in Dibrugarh, what is the context of that? How is the situation there? If you can talk about that, it'll really add some of the narrative. Problem statement. How is affected with the low sanitation access? Do people don't have toilets? Give proper evidence, proper data and evidence. What are the challenges you face? Give proper evidence and data when you flesh out the whole. Okay. UNICEF's role and intentions, very important. Donors usually look for that. How did UNICEF and partners come about and resolve that challenge? And how did their funding actually created an impact in the community? UNICEF's role or the partner's role becomes a very important reflect. Usually we see a lot of reports that everything is very well defined. There's background, there's problem statement, there's everything, there's outputs, there's challenges. But the UNICEF, how did UNICEF come about in that place is somewhat missing. So you need to flesh this section out really well. Description. Answer these 5 questions. Who, what, when, where. Who did what has been done, what are the interventions that you undertook, when was it done, where was it done, and who was involved? Was the government at stake? Were the partners involved? Were the university knowledge based partners also came in as technical experts? Do write in that as well. Okay. Coming back to our previous question, can someone very quickly explain to everyone the difference between outputs and outcomes? Yes, there's a thin line of difference, but you scored, I mean, on an average, you scored 8 out of 10, everyone. So, time to explain it. Anyone like to come in? Tell me in output and outcome?
Yeah, I
This was
think
the
like
best rated question.
yeah. So Arslan here. So my understanding of output is they are the immediate result of the activities and inputs you are putting into a program, like whatever
Exactly.
inputs and activities you are putting, and it's
Mhm.
mostly quantifiable. You have numbers
Okay.
attached to it, outputs, and outcomes or impacts are long-term achievements, like continued or multiple outputs lead to singular or one outcome, or maybe continued effort leads to an outcome. So that's long term outcome.
Okay, great. So a good example of that could be, it comes to my mind right now, under the Jal Shakti, 7,000 watershed structures were constructed in Bad district of Assam. This could be an out. Please note, this could be an output, something that's quantifiable, something that's short term. How did that impact in the long term? That would become an outcome. If you say that these watershed structures increasing the water table, the ground water level, or it solved the water scarcity issue that Jorhat was facing. An impact that is in the long term becomes an outcome. Line of difference between both of them, you would reflect both in your case studies. What is the immediate output? How many trainings you conducted? What are the quantifiable outcomes and the long term outcomes that you think will come out of our intervention? Okay, lessons learned and way forward. Okay, this I use this point to encourage cross learning. When you write your lessons learned and ways forward, when someone reads it, they also get a good idea of what lessons that they can learn, mistakes that you might have made that they couldn't replicate. That what are the best practices that you have been engaged in, they could emulate. So this lessons learned, telling lessons learned and ways forward, strength cross learning in knowledge management. Yes, and lastly, quote from a beneficiary that really adds a human angle to your technical story. Uh, you can have a quote, or maybe a quote, or maybe an intervention, or maybe let's say narrative from a government official, a senior government official, that would give a lot of credibility to your case study and increase uptake among the stakeholders. So try adding I'm sure you in the story that you read on tea gardens in the nutrition gardens that are there in Assam, there you had specific quotes of people. If you see that that really added of some flavor in the human interest story, like Pratosh. So yes, expanding the canvas. Okay, so this is what I've observed over the past 2 years, that in the especially in UNICEF, a lot of importance is given to convergence, which is nothing but in your program with other cross-cutting themes in order to attain common objectives. Let's just say that we have to say that WASH as a program does not work in a silo or in a closed room. We work with other programs as well in order to achieve shared objectives. For instance, if you talk about that you are working towards WASH in Anganwadis, I'm sure there are a lot of WASH in institutions here. If you're saying that you're working in WASH in Anganwadis, and having a grey water management system, to say Anganwadis, there's a lot of scope in your narrative to talk about nutrition as well. Like how will grey help improve the nutrition status of the studying in that Anganwadi? So you have that opportunity to canvas, expand your horizon when you write a case study. Yes. Also, if there's a lot of great work that Assam has been doing in youth engagement. So you can also talk about that. I know of a lot of sanitation champions who are coming out of Assam, the tea gardens of Assam. So how do you gender into that? Are they women? How are they being benefited from that? Have so I also know for a fact that I'll giving you another example, that Assam has been leading on making disaster-friendly infrastructure and toilets for those affected by natural calamities. So how will you link that with climate resilience, given that there are a lot many incidents of there are periodic floods that keep coming into Assam? When you say cross-cutting, you have to take into account all similar integrating scene that could be mingled with wash together. While you do this, always remember to keep children at the center of the narratives. Okay, that if you have a statement, say the Jorhat district turned open defecation free. While this may be a complete statement on its own, I don't know if what relevance will have in a narrative that is written by UNICEF, as long as it does not mention Jorhat turning ODF will impact children. Will the mortality rate improve? Will children get access to clean and will they have toilets around? Will they have toilets in their school? In the school. So always keep children at the center of the narratives that you produce. Okay. So while we talked about all the ingredients, please note that these might not be beneficial for a case study, but also help you in drafting products as well. This could be any evaluation reports, technical reports, documents, and you have the same ingredients in mind. Trust me, you can switch having from drafting a case study to drafting a report as well. The structures might be different, the narrative might be different, but the ingredients are pretty much the same. Those ingredients in the when you're drafting other knowledge products as well. Okay. Now, a very quick thing that I want to talk about is what are the that you should keep in mind while giving a presentation. Most of you might be on the front line training online or off late with COVID-19 with technical aspects of COVID-19 management on infection prevention and control. Just before you walk into a presentation, what are the quick tips that I would or we would recommend you that you can have in place? Number one, plan before. You should have your talking points much before in advance. You should know what you're going to talk about. Another trick that I want to trick that I want to share is share the agenda in the first slides. It doesn't. When reader the viewer only expects you do not raise the expectation and set the bar very straight. That in this presentation you're going to talk about this. It really sets the tone. Know who is it for. Again, bring back to the question, who is your audience? Is your audience let's say ground level functionaries, or are they public or are they public representatives or government stakeholders? So accordingly you need to draft or the presentation style to that will inform delivery and content. If you're doing it for children, let's just say, keep it very simple, keep it very basic. Do not use too many text blocks in that in your presentation. Use very concise bullet points. Like if you have seen in this presentation as well, text blocks other than very quick bullet points and the tips that I'm giving. Connect, interact, and engage with the audience. A good way to do that, like we did through polls, it will make sure that the audience is interactive and also answers questions and also responds to questions and also is equally a part of the presentation as the speaker is. Keep it visually attractive. At the end of the day, the people like seeing to visual things. Even if they don't listen to you, they can see your presentation. To keep it visually attractive, stick to time limit. Okay, we are in the time limit. Okay, great. Stick to the time limit. When the speaker usually has an urge to jam all his ideas at one moment, so please avoid that. Keep the stopwatch in hand and know when you have to stop and when, and in that time frame, uh, give an elevator. We call in the management term it's called elevator kind pitch, that you have to pitch your message in that limited time. And as a good knowledge management practice, please do share your presentation with the audience once the presentation is over. What, right after the presentation, it really honors your commitment, but it really helps the connect or what is the presentation and what is it about. So it really establishes a link in between. Yes, some very quick logistic steps. Could anyone guess where is this photograph from? Take a wild guess. Where is this from? Have you seen this before? If yes or no, if you don't know about it,
I, I think it is from Majuli, I guess.
okay. And what is this? What is the lady doing here?
Mm, she's blowing one whistle. I think she's calling for somebody, I guess.
Okay. Anyone else
I think she is stopping
would like to
people to.
guess where is this photograph from?
I think she's doing some
supervision or vigilance to stop doing open defecation. Okay, okay. So the responses that we have get, I think, I believe that there's no surety in this. Surety because you don't have a cap. Please caption your photographs. You know, as you might have heard this saying, very popular, picture speaks 1,000 words, but it's those 1,000 words are still not enough. You need to give a caption in front of beneath every image. I'll recommend you to go a step further. Also give credit to the photographer. If you come across a lot of global documents that are there are a lot of they are very particular in giving credit to the photographers. Also, another important thing that I would like to talk about, as photographers we not know, but we possess a certain soft power. That soft power, we have the power to represent, to reflect the representation of the subject of the photo. So it's very important that you take the consent of that. If you consent to that person, it's like a violation of their right to privacy, that this lady would not want to go public. So it's better that consent of that way in advance. How to take consent? Have a structured form that I will share with you, in which the person has to sign and certify that he or she has no issues in UNICEF photograph for public purposes, and the consent even becomes mandatory for those for children in years with less than 18 years of age. So if the child less than 18 years of age would not sign, so it's better if the guardian or the parent of that sign the photograph, would sign the consent form. Please note that we know that it might you given the lockdown to go in the field to get consent. So what we have negotiated is with our communications teams is that you can also get consent. I will share a sample format on how to get consent on WhatsApp. It line statement in which person tells name and writes write their name, their age, writes that they have no problems in UNICEF for their photograph. I will share that photograph with you. Yes. Do you? If you see the slide, this is exactly the line. I have no objection of the use of the photo and content to word by UNICEF. If they can say that even in English or that they prefer, take that as record, take a screenshot of it, and document it for. Yes, and we come. We're almost on time.
Yeah.
File naming.
Raghav,
Okay, this is something I feel is a little undervalued and under. Sorry.
yes,
Hello.
Raghav. So I just wanted to add one thing to the consent. So it is a very, like, I wouldn't say that I enjoy always following up with consent, but I will tell you that, a lot of the photos that you collect, again, we don't immediately use everything, right? You might document case studies, but we probably won't use it for another month or 2 months until we have to turn in that donor report, until the government comes and says, can you guys give us pictures and case studies about water supply, right? You have to have information ready for future needs and demands and requests. And that is why it is important to caption the photos, but also to get consent now when you get the photo, because in 2 months time, it will be so much more work for you to trace down that person and get their consent at that time, and also remind them that they shared pictures and tell, so it's much easier now to get consent while you're getting the videos, while you're getting the case study or any sort of private information that can identify this individual you're talking about, than having to do all of that work later on. So knowledge management, again, is about the most effective way, efficient way forward. And efficiency is trying to get as much information as you can while you're in the moment. Over.
Thank you. Okay. The last slide. Okay, very important. Now, this file naming, I feel, is a very undervalued and an underrated tactic that we use in knowledge management. That I don't find many people maintaining a very consistent file names. Remember about consistency that we talked about in the first half of the presentation. Please maintain that consistency in your file naming as well. File management is again is archival is again a very important aspect of knowledge management. If you don't know how to name a file, we have suggested a few nomenclature, a few examples that you could follow. If you see this, it's 180510, which is the year, the month, and the date, which is 10th of May 2018. Following that, you write the subject. What is it exactly? Is it a standard operating procedure for defiltration units? And further go ahead, tell us what location or what language is it in. So please follow this procedure while you not only save your files, but also when you share it with UNICEF office or anyone, do save your files in the same name. It automatically gets organized in if you name it yearly, if you categorize it yearly, it automatically gets sorted in folder. That's the non-KM trick. So this is the nomenclature that we would recommend, which is, I repeat, the date followed by the subject, the location, and if it's some regional language, do specify that in parentheses as well. And with this, we come to the end of our presentation. Now, I think we have room for question and answers. If you think I've missed anything, or if you want me to repeat anything, or if any doubts or any queries, please do let me know. I will do that. Or any other reflection, if you found what did you like about the presentation, please do let us know. We have almost 10 minutes for question and answers, and we started a bit late. So yes, I open the floor to everyone. Anyone would like to come in?
Hello, hi Raghav, this is Manish. Am I audible?
Hi Manish, hi.
Yeah, hi Raghav, this is Manish from YP of Assam. Actually, I have asked this question during the YP orientation as well, regarding the using of photos of fieldwork on social media like LinkedIn or some other social media for publishing the success story, like for personal blog or something. What are the rules and regulation for that? For the same thing, I have to get the consent for the same photos, or means that content.
So you're saying, like, how will the case study that you publish will go onto social media? Is that your question?
Yeah, means yeah, the same. And the other thing is that if I am posting any picture of fieldwork on my any social media like LinkedIn as a success story that I have worked in this field, or this is the photos of the means like well functioning or well maintained hand pump or school. This is the success story.
Yeah.
What are the rules for the?
Yeah, thank you for asking, Manish. That is a very good question. So any work that you do while you're working with UNICEF or being, funded by UNICEF, or it's part of your deliverables in alignment with UNICEF, we do ask that you first just make sure that that case study is cleared by your supervisor, and because that participant is still being profiled, right? Like, you would want your consent to be taken regardless of what the platform is. Even if someone was publishing on their personal blog, you would want them to know that they talked to you about it before they did it. So yes, always, you still will need consent whenever you publish to external audiences, because the idea is to protect yourself from any liability, and also to make sure that the beneficiary knows that we're talking about them, regardless of what the platform is. Now, if you do any sort of work, now let's say you want to publish about your professional work on a personal blog, you can. We cannot stop you, freedom of speech or anything like that, but we encourage you guys to always, this is going beyond what you asked for, Manish, but just a reminder, we encourage you guys to always keep in mind any future consequences that might result from a government official stumbling upon your blog by any reason, right? So, be careful, double check what you're saying, make sure not to make quick judgments that might affect your professional interactions with someone, and the way that UNICEF itself can be perceived. If it's easier, it's also better to keep UNICEF's name out of personal blogs, and just be like, you just support an organization that works on water sanitation and hygiene. And that also makes things a little easier and less complicated in terms of liability as well. So feel free to reach out if you guys have any particular questions about this area as well. But in general, always try to take consent of the person that you're talking about, especially if they are lower, if they have less power in this world than we do. We have more privilege than they do. People of higher privilege always should take an extra step to respect the rights of people with less privilege than us. So that is just our, I think, our general approach. I hope that helped, Manish. If that, let me know let me know by the side. Raghav will share my email address when he sends you all this information. Please feel free to email also privately. Things will stay confidential.
Thank you, Rahul.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have your contact number. I will surely.
Okay, perfect. Please do.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, Raghav.
Anyone else would like to come in? Any more questions? The more questions you ask, the more better we know that you were attentive during the workshop. Anyone else? Or should I, Shweta, is it okay if I call out names? Or if anyone who hasn't spoken or any questions that you may have, any reflections?
Go ahead.
Pratosh, I think your mic is on. You want to say something?
Yeah, I was thinking, actually, on personal level, I wanted to know something more about how we give references. Like sometimes what happens is we write something like the numbers, and it's like not the exact number we should write, but sometimes we write some approximate numbers and sometimes we write the exact numbers. So so I just want some clarity on it, like how to structure that thing. Like if I've written something in one paragraph and I want to write it, but in the case studies we can't write references. So
yeah, I would say case studies, it makes more sense to write footnotes. I also do the thing where, because it's not academic, you're totally right. So Raghav, if it's okay to unshare your screen, I just want to share a whiteboard. Yeah. I'm just going to share a whiteboard here, share, and see if this works. Good. So I would just say, in a case study, if you're saying like 30% of Assam is covered, and
yes.
I'm just making this up, with piped water supply, right?
Yes.
Then you can actually, the two things that I would say is it's better to build it into your sentence, like according to the government, according to the government of Assam's database on blah blah blah. You can build that in, or you can do a footnote. So then this is where you would put the footnote, like the small number on top, and then it would go into the bottom footer of the page, and that's the best way to do it. Because case studies, you don't have reference sections or anything like that. So footnotes are best ways to build it into this, so people know exactly where you're getting the data from. Yeah. More important, philosophically, what's important is that even if you're not super strict about citing, which you should be, is that you're confident about where the data is coming from. If someone comes back to you in a month or so and says, hey, where is this data from? You should just be able to show that. That's what's most important about case studies versus academic journals where everybody wants a solid citation section. Yes. Thanks. Great question. Yeah.
I could see Ankita wanted to say something. Ankita, you want to say something? Your mic was on.
Okay, I think we should let people go. It's well over 1:10, which is what we promised. If you, Ankita and others, if you guys have questions, please do email us. We are always available to email back. Just give us a day or so. And Raghav will share all of this information shortly, as well as a link to the recorded session so that anybody who wants to revisit this can. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for the amazing participation. And I don't know if Pratosh and Sweta want to say any final words. Yeah, I before Pratosh, I thought I just mentioned something. Thank you. I mean, at the outset, thank you, Swati and Raghav, for taking the Assam team through this. Just one regret that we should have, and the team here, we should have thought of it earlier and could have benefited from this. So, and because that Assam has been doing some really great work and very unique compared to other states who have their own uniqueness, and which, if documented well, could actually speak about and highlight the profile of the work done in the state and the team that is working so hard to do it. While there have been massive, in efforts on social media by a part of the team, I would say Shwetangana here and Roop Jyoti, who've been constantly highlighting work done in Assam on social media, on Twitter. There's also the whole water team there and the sanitation team at state level, and the district associates who are there, who have been doing a whole lot of great work. However, it does not, we could capture it further and highlight it more, considering it's a very unique thing. And a lot of district associates here, and I would flag if Amanur is here from SPMU or PhD, and Dr. Amanur, are you there? Uh, and then there is, I see Assam University here and Tejpur University, the water quality team. So